Hi, I'm Chris Cudworth, and here to take you on a tour of my show that's called Urban Wilds. It's in the upstairs gallery at Water Street Studios, the Kane County Gallery, and it's on display through August and September of 2016. The show kind of starts in concept with a little drawing I had done a long while back. One of those secret little places under a bridge where people had sort of marked graffiti and drawn characters and sort of illustrated this sense of place and the fact that we're here. And so what I really wanted to communicate through this show was the idea that nature and human beings sort of interact at this strange level, sometimes with our structures and sometimes with recaptured structures and things like that. And one of the first paintings in the show is this acrylic called Transitions that features a spot west of Batavia that had once been an active farm with a menagerie of animals, and it is now transitioning to probably some other purpose. But in the meantime, the fence had decayed and the ghost of a horse still stood on this hill on a foggy morning, and these non-native species of house sparrows sort of occupy that space. Similarly, this painting is called Swallow Shadow, and it's a portrait of an actual brick wall up in the Minneapolis area. When I was up there, I captured some photographic references, and it brings out sort of the life and structure of a decaying building and these old bricks that are falling apart, and when they board it up, the paint takes on a patina weathered by rain and wind. And this one is actually called Urban Light, and rather than be literal about this illustration, a painting, it's actually a piece that captures that sense of structure and light and the interplay, and maybe not so more emotional. And you can see that these are all encased in these old window frames that I collected, and they make a very, very nice setting for this type of Urban Wilds painting, right down to the hanging wires. As we move along, this is a painting called James in the Street, and I actually at one point met James, and he's a homeless individual in a nearby community. And at first, when I saw him, he was coming into a Starbucks restaurant. He was in a dilapidated old wheelchair, and I happened to have one from my late father. So I brought that back up to him and accompanied him during the day to a place where he was going to get out of the rain. And it really struck me, and I snapped a quick picture of him as he was moving through this rainstorm in his wet jacket. And that is what this painting depicts. He lives in an area next to the railroad tracks in the woods, and fights off coyotes with sticks to keep him away from his food. And I wanted to capture sort of the both the difficult energy in which you live when you're in nature, and also in the streets. And that's James in the Street. Also wanted to capture some of the sort of moments in the city. This is a painting called City Canyon, and you can see the lights rather profound. It's based on a image I captured down in Chicago, and you can see marching along, heading to the train, are some individuals, and you can see the city light pouring onto these buildings. And up here in the corner, there are some crows flying by, and the whole thing is sort of to communicate the manner in which we are rather small beings in a rather big city. And this painting is called Red in Tooth and Claw, and it's a painting of basically a sporting event, the UFC, and it shows that these guys are both an intimate connection in their fight, and also, you know, just pure and raw difficulty. It's framed inside a glass that was already in this case that really affects the surface of light on the painting and shows that, you know, it's sort of like a distancing effect and the struggle. And then there are a pair of paintings together that are called Oil and Water 1 and Oil and Water 2, and that are both lacking glass because I wanted to have people see the actual surface up close as if it were indeed the actual surface of oil on a city street during a rainstorm. You know, we consider it a pollutant, but oil is still an organic substance, and it does, along with methane, make a really beautiful surface. And I tried to capture some of that and how the colors come out when the oil moves down and washes away. To me, they're both very emotional paintings too. It's something about the inner release of sensation when you open your eyes clearly and look at the world. And those are sort of some of the abstract works in this show. Also included some of the earlier paintings that still make use of abstractions, but in a little more realistic fashion. And the first one is this painting called Sun Times. And it's of the actual Sun Times building at the corner of Wacker in the river in Chicago. And you'll see it captures the sunshine bouncing off this building, this human structure, and striking the river below, and creating almost its own universe. And one of the interesting principles is that even white birds, when they fly through dark sunlight or bright sunlight like that, turn dark. And you know, they're kind of like little creatures of thought, you know, moving up and down the river. And people can take them for granted, but they really are an integral part of a lot of big cities. And this one is called Peregrine and Prey. And there are, in a number of cities across the country, pairs of peregrine falcons that breed in the city. It provides them a measure of safety because they don't get eaten by things like great horned owls. But in the city, they hunt these pigeons, and they're a ready source of prey. There's plenty of them, and they tend to be really good prey subjects for the peregrine, which can fly on the flat 70 or 89 miles an hour, as I understand, and in a stoop 190 miles an hour. And it sort of conveys this sense of space illustrated by the tall structure of the building. And this is an actual spot in Chicago. And here we have the Trump Tower in the city. And of course, he's in the heart of this electoral process and controversial figure. And it's interesting because, you know, his big claim is, well, I make beautiful buildings, and one can hardly argue with that. And so I tried to illustrate this building at twilight when it takes on a completely different color, and yet show that even around the human structures like this, there are wild creatures flying like nighthawks. And down here where the sun's setting, it almost looks like the building and the city is on fire, so you can judge for yourself on that one. Somewhat of a companion to these two pieces from Urban Light and the city structure is a painting I did called Starlings. And it is an illustration of, well, not an illustration, really a very loose painting of the interior of a structure in Minneapolis that was abandoned and left to go wild. And I was walking by there and poked my nose in, and, you know, first thing I saw was this wild sort of cacophony of plants and boards and everything like that. And it really is sort of a wild place, and it sort of captures the flavor of the show, Urban Wilds. You know, you can see You know, there was an old basketball hoop in there, and this beautiful old beat-up structure, and this strange light at twilight, and the starlings in those rafters. And this painting is called Butterfly Banquet, and it's based on a butterfly I encountered that was feeding on the salts and debris from horse dung, and that was the initial motivation for the painting. And I added in the chicory, which occurs wild, native and wild in disturbed soil and that sort of thing. But all these kinds of spots often have strange little debris laying around, and of course, cigarette butts are famous for that. And the famous beer can. But together, they form an interesting composition of these blues and browns, and it really illustrates the sort of balance that nature finds even amongst debris. And the final piece in the show is this painting called Fox and Prey. This is an actual fox that lives here in Batavia and lives in suburbia and makes its living catching rabbits and squirrels. And here it is carrying its prey back to its den and its young, and just kind of going about business. But it's almost like someone coming home from Trader Joe's with their groceries for their kids. Mom, what did you get us today? So there you have it. That's my show, and it's been kind of fun to share it with people. And there are brochures here on site if you come to see it, describing all this and some material on me. And really appreciate if people come by, and I hope you enjoy seeing the paintings online. Thanks.